Can hear the dog. I can hear the dog. She's shaking. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's me, and here's my worst and best movies of 2023. Before we get started, don't forget everybody, like and subscribe down below. It helps the channel a lot. Don't forget to share it too. Good idea. Now, let's get to the list. I'm gonna start off with the worst. Why? Because it's just a short little list that I just gotta throw out there right away. And I'm not even gonna go into detail on it. I'm just gonna throw it out here. Here, you're ready. Marvels. The Marvels sucked. The Marvels sucked so bad because of its budget, the story, the reshoots, the lack of identity, and just the ridiculousness of it was just horrific. Number 2, Indiana Jones. I'm sorry, one of my icons again was basically shit on by Kathleen Kennedy, and it was so bad. It was just the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen, especially when you consider, again, these bloated, ridiculous costs. You know, the budget for this film was somewhere like almost $300 million, not including your advertising. It was just awful. The movie sucked, the CGI sucked, everything sucked. I feel bad for Harrison Ford because his legacy is kind of taking a nosedive pretty hardcore. Okay, next, Aquaman. That was just a mess. I mean, if you went in it just with some popcorn and just wanted to just see some shit going on the screen, you might be okay, but the movie was terrible. The story was awful. It's just, yeah, it's pretty good. However, the worst, believe it or not, I can't believe this, the worst was actually one of my old sweethearts, Meg Ryan. Her film, What Happens Later, was one of the worst films. It had to be the worst. It was the worst film I had seen all year. I wanted to walk out of it. If I wasn't reviewing it, I would have walked out of it. It was that bad. They made unlikable characters that nobody gave a shit about, and then they tried to get you into the story. And I'd already tuned out. It was like 10, 15 minutes into the film, and I was checked out because they were so miserable. They had no redeeming qualities. I had no interest in finding out about them because they were that badly written. I'm not sure why that is. Make somebody miserable, old, and cranky. Forget that. Never mind. It's the worst movie, trust me. By the way, as a side note, I wanted to have this list right at the end of the year, but I wanted to watch a few of the last minute movies, and I'm glad that I did. But we had kind of a miserable over Christmas break. I got sick, so I still have a little bit of sniffles, but not terrible. And my wife dropped the kids off at school, driving home. A lady ran the stop sign and plowed into my wife doing 35 miles an hour. I'm glad it wasn't faster. She's okay. But the van is trashed. We're not gonna have it for another month or so, so it's gonna be like a full 2 months of repairs. It's a disaster. So a lot of that stuff was terrible. But I'm back to you guys and back to my list and back to my movies, which I, of course, love. Okay, so I have 15 movies. 15 movies that I'm gonna give you. Number 15, and at the end, when we get down to the bottom, man, they're so close, and it depends on what you're in the mood for. But you'll see what I mean when we get there, okay? So, number 15, Killers of the Flower Moon. Martin Scorsese, man, Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro. This movie was great. I'm half Native American, Mohawk, so I had already a little bit of a interest in this film, and I have to say that the movie is great. You should see it once. It's not something that's going to be really, really rewatchable, but it is top notch. It's wonderful. It's done. It's 3 hours. It's crazy long, but it didn't feel that at all. I was always interested in what was going on and wanted to see what was next. But Killers of the Flower Moon, great movie. Watch it at least once. Okay, number 14, Dream Scenario. Nicolas Cage. Oh my God. And I'm just going to say this really quick. If you didn't see my review on it, the movie is so amazing. It is so great because it takes the entire world that we live in now with social media and the rising up, the cancellation, the rise and fall of people at the whim of what anybody just thinks in their head. It's a great, great film. That's rewatchable. Make sure you see it at least once. That is a great, great film. And Nicolas Cage does a spectacular job in it as well. Check that one out. Number 13, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I'm going to say that this could move a little up and down, but I'm putting it right here. And the reason why is because I thought it was just a tiny bit over-bloated, just a little bit. And the thing that got me, though, was the ending. If you haven't seen it, oh my God, go see it. If you have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. The ending was just such a great cliffhanger. It was a great way to end it. There's no doubt about it. The actual animation in this film is spectacular. I love the differences. I love the way that they had different artsy looks for different scenes and different things and different characters. It was great. I can't wait for the next one. The first one was amazing. This one was also great. I'm hoping that the third one is going to just pop it off and be amazing. That's number 13. Number 12. This one's a little controversial because of my review and because of what I said about the ending of it, but The Creator. I watched it 2 more times already, and there's something about the film that I think they do a great job of grabbing you, pulling you in, making you feel for the characters, and I think that the story is spectacular. The ending does get a little convenient, but besides that, overall, and I'm a sucker for sci-fi. I love sci-fi, but only if it's good, right? Like, for example, like Rebel Moon. Okay, enough said. But this movie is actually really, really capable. I think it's going to be something I'm going to watch over and over again. Check that one out, The Creator. Number 11, John Wick 4. I still maintain that the first John Wick was the best. It was tight. The story was tight. The action scenes and the fight scenes were just spectacular. And I think that they did a fantastic job in that first movie. It was great. 2 and 3, I go back and forth on how much I like each one of those. And 4 was kind of like the same thing. There were some moments that I thought were just, I mean, it was ungodly to watch John Wick 4. The only thing about it was I thought that some of the scenes were a little bit too long in the tooth. They got a little too drawn out, and I think they could have made those a little shorter and tighter, and I think it would have been a better film overall. However, the story's great. The world building is great. I'm looking forward to Ana de Armas in The Ballerina. That expansion of this universe is pretty cool. And John Wick Chapter 4 is definitely worth a watch. And for sure, I'll watch it many times in the future too. Who am I kidding? Okay, so now we're down to the top 10. Number 10 on my list is the Super Mario Brothers movie. My kids, this is partially because of my kids. They loved this movie. Now, I'm not going to say that the movie was a phenomenal story. I'm not going to say that it was like the best thing ever. I'm going to say it serviced exactly who they set out to service. Kids, people like myself who have played video games their whole lives, they had so many Easter eggs and so many fun, entertaining things. Just seeing some of the characters were like, and my kids just had a blast with it. So I can't fault them for doing and giving that fan service to people. Some of the criticisms were because of that, but I think that if you know your audience and you're giving them what they want, there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's like going to your favorite pizza place. If you get some pizza, you're all set. Number 9, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I have to say this, when I watched the first trailer for the first Guardians of the Galaxy, I thought it looked stupid. I was like, this is going to be terrible. And then I watched a couple more clips and I was like, man, this might be good. Saw it and was just mind blown. It is to this date one of my favorite movies, including not just Marvel, but one of my favorite movies to watch. And here's why. That movie, the first movie, is a case study for how to get you involved with the characters in a very, very, very short period of time, let you and make you care for those characters in a nice, natural, and what feels like a very organic way. The second movie was decent. I liked it. And the third one here was the same thing. I liked it, but it did give a nice wrap up for those characters, and that was marvelous. I thought that that was really, really well done. The first one is still my favorite, but again, a case study on how to do a character right. You don't need an entire movie. You don't need 2 movies to develop each single character. You can do it in a short period of time and make you care for them. Because here I am watching the third movie, still caring about these characters, and if the first movie didn't pull that off, I wouldn't be watching this one, right? Great movie, watch it, very rewatchable. There we go. Number 8, this one surprised me. Air. Yes, Air Jordans, the movie about the development of that sneaker, Michael Jordan's involvement, Matt Damon, unbelievable, Ben Affleck, unbelievable. It was a riveting story. It was interesting. It was really cool. And I thoroughly enjoyed a lot of the backstory about Michael Jordan's mom and how she really knew that he was something special, and they wanted to push forward what truly became an iconic situation, a change in the capitalist world, because they stuck to their guns and they knew how important he was. And the story is just really, really fun to watch. And growing up in that era and seeing him come up out of college and all of this unfold before your eyes, the story was a great clip of that world and the capitalism that surrounds it. You got to watch that one. Okay, number 7, The Boys in the Boat. If I had done my review earlier in December, I would have missed this and it wouldn't be on my list. I'm so glad I waited. I got to tell you, the movie's fantastic. Well acted. And again, my review talks about this. My dad was an Olympic rower. He was an alternate. He didn't row in the Olympics, but he was the first alternate. So he never got that privilege. But I know the story behind it. I know the gruel, the everything, the determination, the grit you got to have for that sport. It's spectacular. This movie also exposes how full of shit that critics can be, and nitpicking and saying things that are just so ridiculous, and not really judging the movie by itself, but just like going off on their own heads of, oh, this is terrible because it's so formulaic and it's just like every other thing. Like, yeah, a lot of sports stories are that way. The underdog who has no chance goes ahead, and so on and so forth. It's a great watch. Everybody cheered in that theater after the end. Watch it. It's great. Okay, number 6, Sisu. Oh, if you want to see something that's just fun and a blast and crazy and over the top, Sisu is your movie. It's a Finnish movie. It was, I seen the trailer for it and I was like, oh my God, that just looks crazy and it looks fun. And that's exactly what it was. As a nitpick, there was only one thing at the very, very end of the movie. I think that they could have done this a little bit better at the very, very end. And when you watch it, you'll probably understand what I mean. That, of course, most of it is ridiculous and most of it is just kind of like over the top. But there was one part that was so much, I was like, oh, they could have done it a little differently and it would have been better. But regardless, it's a great watch. It's a blast. It's grotesque. It's over the top. Enjoy that one. I've already watched it, I think 3 or 4 times already. Watch that. You'll love it. Okay, so we've reached the top 5. Please don't forget to like and subscribe down below. It's always appreciated. So these next 2 films are actually not the most happiest things in the world, but I have to say that it was awesome. My number 5 of the year is the movie Still. The documentary with Michael J. Fox. Man, growing up with him, watching him on Family Ties, Back to the Future. In my theater, I actually have a out of time California license plate from Back to the Future. It's a great, great look, and it's heartbreaking. It's inspiring. I admire what he did in his career when he was pushing through to get things finished and get things done and do everything he could to be a better actor, to be able to perform and do these things, and of course being tragically struck with this horrible disease it's heartbreaking. And you watch him as his decline goes on, and you see him in his old young days and what he was able to do and where he is now. It's a sad, sad situation. It's a sad film. At the same time, it's marvelous that he embraced this documentary about him, and it's just a great, great watch. I highly recommend that. Oh, and as a side note, Val is another one that is definitely worth a watch as well. But still, for me, was a great film. Okay, everybody. Number 4, The Iron Claw. Man, another one. Late in the year, I didn't expect this. And it's funny because I went to this film. I hated the wrestling. I hated that wrestling. I know it was over the top, and I know it was designed to be a specific thing for specific people who wanted it. I just didn't care for it at all. But I went into it because of the story, obviously, and the Von Erichs, and this movie just blew me away. It was magnificent, top to bottom. The acting, the cinematography, the character, the what do you call it? The settings. Oh, you talk about the costume design. It was so good. And if you don't know it, go and see it, and make sure you see it. If it's not in theaters anymore, see it somewhere, because it's just it is a heartbreaking story. To see this family get pummeled by so much, and some of it's somewhat self-inflicted, some of it's not, some of it's just, you know, bad shit ass luck. But the movie's great. Zac Efron, this has got to be his best performance ever in a film. Watch it, but be prepared. This is not a sports one that you're all excited for. This is heartbreak, and it's a tough watch, but it's magnificent. Great performances from everyone. Okay, wow. All right, we're down to our last three, and admittedly, I watch other people's content as well, of course. I think most everybody does. You don't just watch one thing. And I was interested to see what other people said and what they thought of their top three. And a lot of people that are right where I am, we're almost the same. Some people picked exactly what I picked. Some people picked different. But my number three for 2023 is Oppenheimer. What a masterpiece. And a masterpiece in every aspect. It's a masterpiece in filmmaking, in acting. The ensemble cast is just spectacular. The lack of going over CGI, there's basically nothing in it. They did everything in camera. And when you watch the behind the scenes, it's amazing the things that they did. But just a wonderful portrayal of this situation, and I just loved it. It was spectacular. Cillian Murphy, man, he just knocks it out of the park, but so does everybody else. It's definitely worth a watch. I've already watched it 3 times, once in the theater, twice at home already. It's great. If you haven't seen it, my God, you've got to see this film. This is for sure Christopher Nolan's best film, and he's got some doozies, but this is his best film, and everything came together, and it's rewatchable. It's magnificent. You got to see it. Number 3. All right, everybody. Man, it's funny when I'm looking at my list. They could move up and down a little bit. Well, I'm going to say especially the bottom ones. These bottom ones, they can move up and down. The whole list could move a little bit up and down, just depending on the kind of mood that you're in and what you're in the mood for, obviously. But number 3, obviously, Oppenheimer. Number 2, man, this was number 1 and number 2. These were the hardest decision for me, and I could just do a toss-up on it. However, that being said, my number 2 that I put in number 2 spot is The Holdovers. Paul Giamatti stars in this, and I have to say that it's such a wonderful, melancholy, sweet, heartbreaking film that it's just the performances are magnificent. The writing is absolutely perfect, and it's just a movie that you're watching people that you care about, and it feels like they're part of your family when you watch it. It's not just you're not just watching people on screen. You're watching people that you care about, and it is just great. And judging by the box office, not a lot of people have seen this film, but trust me, you got to go see it. And when it's out, buy it on digital. It's worth it. I've now watched this 4 times. I've watched this 4 times just because I just enjoyed it so much. I saw it twice in the theater, and after the first time I was like, man, that is so good, and I got to see it again. And then I've bought it and I've watched it twice at home. It's just and the soundtrack. Oh my God, I listen to the soundtrack all the time. There's some songs in there that are just so beautiful, and it just sets this mood. Again, it has that feel that is something that I will easily, like if I'm cooking or working on the computer, I'll throw it on in the background just to listen, because the story and the dialogue and everything is just so magnificent. That's my number 2. All right, buddy, so here we are. Number 1 of 2023. Believe it or not, it's Godzilla Minus One. And I'm going to tell you one quick story about this because I think this encapsulates the entire thing. I was telling one of my friends about it. They hadn't seen it, and they have kids that could see it. And we were talking about it, and I was like, there were 6 of us in the theater, right? 6 of us. And 5 of us were crying at the end of this movie. 5 out of 6. The person looks at me and she goes, what's the punchline? And I'm like, there's no punchline. The movie is that good. She's like, a Godzilla movie? I'm like, yes. And that's exactly the point. This movie is not about Godzilla. If you watch my review, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. The movie is a human story. It's about the people. It's about a guy who has shame for what he didn't do, what he was supposed to do. He failed at his responsibility. And the shame he felt when he got home. And everybody chastising him and knowing that he failed at what he was supposed to do. And the consequences of that and that guilt. And then there's a story about the family and what a family means and what a family can constitute, what it can be made of, right? And then you have this redemption arc and this trudging along of going on with life. And the reason that the movie is so great is how everything goes from the third act and how it wraps up, and everybody had a part to play, and the writing was so spot on that everybody's, I'm going to say their essence in the film was right there, and it came together in a way that is just, it was masterful in writing this story and how it all ended up. Of course, Godzilla's wicked awesome. His atomic breath, you watch these scenes and it was just spectacular. And on a budget of $15 million to see this do what it did and puts these Marvel movies and everything else to absolute shame. It takes these other big high budget films and spanks them upside the head, and you're just like, get out of here, you're a joke. That's how good this movie was. So is Godzilla in it? Yes, he smashes shit, he's amazing, and those scenes are spectacular. But the human story is what makes this movie absolutely spectacular. And you see the new, the Kong movies, and some are better than others. And I've said this in my review. Some of them are better than others. But as far as like you caring about the humans, they don't matter. Basically, anytime that they're on screen, you're just waiting for Godzilla or Kong to be on the screen again so you can see some shit happen, right? You want to see shit go down, and that's what you're waiting for. This movie didn't even have to have Godzilla in it, and it would still be an absolutely perfect film. Phenomenal. But just the fact that he's in there and he does all that shit too, it just makes it all the better. The best Godzilla film by far. I mean, and not even any of them. What is there, like 39 something, 40 Godzilla movies? This is by far the best, and it's not just a good monster movie, it's a great movie. My number one. Anyway, thank you guys so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this list. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think, if you agree or disagree, if you think I missed some things. And of course, there are some movies that are on this list that I did not see. This is a newer channel, and I love movies and I see tons of them, but there are quite a few that I didn't get to see that I'm looking forward to doing that now. So when they come out on digital, I'll grab them and I'll check them out for sure. But that's my list for now. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll catch you guys next time.